Hi, I'm Rashonda. I'm the creator of artbyrow.com, where you can find over 200 art and drawing tutorials and everything art related. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to head on over to the art studio and do some drawings. I hope you'll grab a pencil and some paper and draw along with us today. I know you'll have fun. Let's head on over to the studio. All right, welcome to the studio. Today we're going to be drawing some cute little gnomes. These are really easy. There's not a lot to them, but there's a lot of variation you can put into them. Different hats, different ways of doing the beard and those sorts of things. The amount of detail you put in, how you draw the beard, if you just draw a basic shape of the beard or if you want to add in all the little hairs. There's just a lot of different ways you can change it up, different themes you can do, different gnomes for different holidays or seasons or whatever you want to do with them. So even though they're really easy to draw, there's not a lot to them. There's still a lot of variation, which makes them perfect if you are new to learning art and drawing. And we're going to start with some basic shapes because there's a lot of benefits to this. It helps us get everything laid out where it needs to be so we can get the size and the placement right. So what we're doing is, here's the circle for the head. We're going to draw a little triangle shape for the hat, and then make kind of another upside down triangle indication at the bottom. That's going to be his beard. And then the next thing we want to do is start adding in the details. So the benefits of drawing these basic shapes, first of all, you get over that, what we call the blank page syndrome, where you have a blank piece of paper and you're just staring at it and you just can't seem to make that first mark on your paper. So by laying out these basic shapes, we get past that. There's no real, no outcome really that we're trying to get other than just getting the placement on the paper and getting the rough shapes put in. And we're going to go in and refine it and do our details over top. So these shapes don't even have to be perfect. But this is where we can change the size, change the placement if it's up a little too high or a little too low or any of those sorts of things. So there's a lot of good benefits to starting with shapes. Also, it's good to be able to look at something, especially a more complex image, and be able to visually see what those shapes are to help guide you along in your drawings. So a lot of good benefits. It's a good habit to get into. It helps you get started. So let's go ahead and start putting in the details. So we're going to draw the nose, and here's where a lot of the variation comes in. So I think they look cute when the nose is just kind of popping out from underneath the hat and there aren't any eyes on it. The hat's kind of covering up the eyes. You might think differently. Maybe you want to add the eyes in there. That's your personal preference. Then that's how you should work on drawing yours out. But for this video, and it makes it a little bit easier if you're not drawing the eyes too, if you feel like eyes are kind of hard to draw. So we got the nose, and we're going to start darkening up the lines and make them a little less sketchy. So I got the nose, and now I have the hat coming down. And there's a lot of different ways you can draw the hat as well. So kind of play around with it a little bit. We're going to start drawing in the beard. And typically with these gnomes, you want the beards to be kind of big. You want them to have a nice full beard. That's pretty standard with a gnome. And I'm going to bring the beard all the way down off the edge of the paper, which I should probably mention, I'm doing mine on an artist trading card. These are a huge time saver, and I really enjoy trading them. So when I get my drawings done, I'll go ahead and trade them to other artists for their work. The ones I don't trade, or when I'm not quite ready to get rid of them yet, I can keep them in a binder, and it sort of acts like a portfolio, which is really nice to be able to flip through and look at the different stuff I've done, see how I've grown and improved, and how my creativity's evolved over time. So I really like the artist trading cards. Like I said, good time saver. So I'm just adding in a couple little indication of some texture, some hair to the beard. Okay, so now we want to draw in the details of the hat. So I got my hat curving around down here into the beard. And you want to add some wrinkles and folds just to make your hat look a little more interesting. You don't want it to be just straight. You can draw it straight, but it looks better if you add some wrinkles and some folds to it. Just gives it a little bit more character. And then if you want, you can add the top of it coming down off to the side. Again, like I said earlier, there's a ton of different ways that you can draw these hats. If you don't like the way something looks, no big deal, just erase it. Change it up to make it look how you like. Add the little puff ball on the end. And then for the hat, if you wanted, you could also add in some stripes or polka dots or something like that. This is a really good beginner drawing to do because they're so cute. There's a lot of different ways you can draw them, and they're really good if you're starting out. So I really recommend these if you're newer, if you haven't really drawn a whole lot and you're trying to get into it. And they make really nice artist trading cards if you're interested in doing the artist trading cards. So now I'm just putting some feet underneath here, some boots sticking out from underneath his beard. I mean, and that's it. That's all there is to drawing the gnomes for the actual drawing of it. So the next thing we're going to do is go in and add an outline, put some color in here, and we're going to finish this up. So the next thing we need is whatever you're going to use to outline your drawing with. I'm using this black Sharpie outlining pen for my outline. These work really well, and then I normally will color with markers, and they work good with the markers. They go together nicely. Another thing you can do if you're used to using them is to use a brush pen, which is something that's on my list of things to get back into doing. They're a little bit harder to control because the pressure determines how thick the line is. So it does take a little bit of getting used to them, but once you are used to using a brush pen, they're really, really nice for outlining. They make your outlines look a lot nicer. You get some good variations in your line weight, but they do take a little bit of practice. It's just one of those things you have to decide it's a priority and then do it. Make time for it, fit it into your schedule. But these outlining pens work good. I typically don't like Sharpies for my artwork, but these outlining pens are among my favorite to use. And if you're using just a regular pen, whatever type of outlining pen you choose to use for your work, you can go back in and darken up areas and add a little bit of variation that way. It just takes a little more of going back and forth and adding more, making it thicker, which is okay. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I actually find it very relaxing to do the outlining, especially going back in and darkening up areas. There's something about it. I can't really explain what it is exactly, but I do find it very calming and very relaxing. So I don't mind. That's probably why I haven't invested the time into getting back into using an outlining pen or a brush pen, because this is relaxing to me. So I'll probably do it one of these days, but we all have our reasons for why we don't do something, right? So just go over top of it, follow right along with all the lines that you know you want to keep. These erasers work really good for drawings. They're nice and have a nice small point to them, so you can go in and clean up. So when you're doing your outlining, you don't accidentally trace over the wrong line. Just make sure when you're finished with your sketch, you know what you're keeping, what you're not keeping. Clean it up a little bit if you need to. I'm just going in, making some little bit of texture for his beard. And you can use these if you want to add some hatching or cross hatching to make some shadows. It gives it a little more of, I don't like, a illustrated kind of look to it. And that's optional. It's up to you what your preferences are. Everything you do on your artwork will depend on your own personal style. What you like, what you don't like, what you think look good, what doesn't look good. If you don't like something, don't do it. If you don't know, then you need to experiment, try new things, see if you do like something or if you don't like it. That's the only way you're going to learn and develop your style, is by trying things, experimenting, doing different things. You can go back in and darken up wherever there might be a shadow, like underneath the edge of his hat. And the artist trading cards are really, really good for experimenting and trying new things, because they're so small. They're big enough that you can do the work on them, but they're small enough that they don't take up a ton of time. So they're really nice for experimenting. And I can add, we actually have an entire module in our course called Your Artistic Journey. We have a module on artist trading cards and how to use them to save time. I'll drop a link in the description. We also cover using basic shapes and how to make time for your art, how to appreciate the art that you make when you're learning and you feel like you're not that good yet. All those things are covered in the course. I'll drop a link in the description for you. But artist trading cards are a wonderful tool to use when you're developing your skills and your style and whatnot. So I just went in, erased all the pencil lines, and I just used this eraser that I have. I also use the pink pearl erasers a lot, but these will collect the ink, the graphite, and then sometimes they'll transfer onto your paper, where this one doesn't. The only thing I don't like about this one is that it is a mess, but not too bad. So that's it for the outline. The next thing is to get some colors, and I'm going to go grab some markers and I'll be right back. Okay, so I grabbed some markers, picked out the colors I want. And the way I pick out my colors is I use this little scrap piece of paper. I have a bunch of these that are left over from cutting out the artist trading cards. And I just test them out on here because I want my colors to be able to blend together. So what you want to do is pick a couple of different colors for each section, a couple of different markers for each section of your drawing. And these are all alcohol markers. And you can mix and match brands. Again, the brand of marker you use is a personal preference. I have a lot of different types of markers, different brands of markers, because I like trying new ones out and experimenting. One of the biggest things, so you want them to be alcohol-based markers so they'll blend together. And when you're blending them, you want to make sure you're working while the marker's still wet. So you want to limit your areas that you're coloring in to just a small section. You don't want to do the whole thing with one color and then go back with the other color, because you risk it drying out. So you want to work, if you want to blend them together, you need to work while the marker's still wet. And the way I work, I like the colors to blend together. So you want to pick two colors that are similar to each other, but you want one to be a little darker than the other, so you can add in some variations, get some shadows in there. And then same thing for the hat. I just picked out two different red markers. And you can mix and match. So I have these touch markers. I got some Bic markers. I pulled some Sharpies, which I mentioned earlier. I don't care for Sharpie too much. They're not the best for working on your artwork, in my opinion. Sharpies have a very strong odor, which I don't like. I'm sensitive to smells, and the odor from the Sharpie markers can get a little overwhelming. And they don't have the best color selection, and having just the one tip size makes it a little hard to work on the drawings. Like these have a nice small tip on it, but the other side has a bigger tip on it. So if you want to do large areas. So typically when I work on my colors, I'll do my lightest color and fill the whole area in. You don't have to do it that way. You could start with your darker color if you wanted, and then fill in the lighter around it. It's just a matter of how you like working. One thing you need to keep in mind is that your colors will look different when you layer them and if you don't layer them. So if you're new to using markers, you want to experiment a little bit with how you lay your colors out. If you want to overlap them or if you want to layer them, you'll get a little bit different look. Not a lot, because they're only semi-transparent, but they do show up when you mix colors together to some extent. So you just want to go in, add some darker areas. The other thing with the markers is when you put more layers of the same marker, it'll darken up a little bit. So if you have an area that looks too light and you go back over it with the same marker, it's going to make it darker than what it was after the first pass with the marker. And I also need to find some colors for his nose. And don't feel like you need to make your gnomes look realistic. You know, they are what do you want to call, like a fantasy character. They're not real. So I've seen people make their gnomes purple or green or blue. You don't have to stick with just regular standard type skin colors. So for the beard, you can leave the beard white, or you could use some gray. Like maybe a lighter gray to just add some little shadows and some darker areas to break up all that white. And it's up to you. I mean, you could make the whole beard gray, you could make it a different color, you could leave it white. Same thing for the little ball on the end of his hat, if you want to break the white up a little bit. So what I'm doing is just kind of putting in some random gray just to break the white up. Then the only thing left to do is the background. And again, there's so many different ways you can do the background. There's a ton of different colors you can use. You could do like maybe a little galaxy sky in the background, make him look like he's outside. You could draw some scenery, a forest or some little mushroom houses or something. You could do just what I call a halo of color around the outside edge. If you don't want to fill the whole background in, just adding some kind of an accent color around the edge of him can look nice. A lot of different choices you can do. Again, everything comes down to your own personal style, what you like, what you don't like. And that's the really great thing about art. You need to get away from questioning if you're doing something right or wrong. Don't be afraid to make some bad art. If it doesn't turn out the way you wanted it to, at the very least, you're going to learn a little bit about yourself and your artwork and the things you like. And if you don't experiment, then you're going to miss out on some good opportunities to grow and expand. You want to make sure you're relaxed and having fun when you're doing your artwork and not stressing out about being worried you might mess it up or make a mistake, which is why the artist trading cards are a nice tool to use when you're working on your artwork, because if you mess up, it's not really the end of the world. And you can just make your own blank cards. That's what I do. You can get 10 cards out of a sheet of paper, and then you also have these leftover little scraps to use to test out your different marker combinations. So they're inexpensive, they're easy to make, they save a lot of time, which frees you up to feel a little bit better about experimenting a little bit. I'm just going to go in with this darker blue, which is a little bit darker than what I normally would do. But this is where that trying something different comes in. I wanted to see what this would look like if I went quite a bit darker. So all you do with your markers is lay down your light color, then go back with the darker color, and then go back over top of it with the lighter color and blend the two together. And the way that it blends together is from the saturation of the alcohol from the markers. I'm just going to blend that out a little bit. Make these lines coming up to fade it all in together. So there's the color. Try to zoom in a little bit without shaking you too much. And then the last thing is, if you want, you can add some white highlights with the Jelly Roll pen. The Jelly Roll pen goes over top of the marker really, really nicely. It's my favorite way to add some white highlights. And when I do mine, I don't worry too much about a light source and all of that. I want to break up the chunks of color a little bit. So I just go in and just kind of put them wherever I feel like. And there we go. Move this out of the way. And our little Gnome is all done. So I hope you enjoyed that. Hopefully you tried one out for yourself, and I will see you soon. Happy creating! Well, how'd you do? Did you make some of your own artwork? I hope you did. I hope you felt encouraged and motivated to start some of your own work. And I hope you feel inspired to keep working on your art. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like and make sure you subscribe so you can see more videos from us when they get posted. I'll talk to you soon. Happy creating!